Hello, everyone. So we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll just introduce ourselves on the panel, and then we will open up the chat and the Q&A for any questions. Your microphones are muted, but yes, feel free to use the chat or the Q&A to ask us any questions related to field. So I'm Hannah Carey. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm a current MSW student. I'm an advanced standing student in the leadership and management pathway. And my field placement has been at Development Centers in Detroit, which is a behavioral health outpatient center. And I've been working in quality improvement within the admin department.
Hi, everyone. My name is Victoria Turner. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am in the interpersonal practice pathway. And I am a advanced standing student. So I have my Bachelor of Social Work and will be graduating in a few days. And I am doing my field placement at Michigan Medicine in inpatient adult care management.
My name is Natalie. I use she, her pronouns as well. I'm a 20-month student on the Welfare of Children and Families pathway, so I'll graduate at the end of next May, or the beginning of next May. I don't know. My field placement is at Community Action Network, which is a series of community centers around Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County. And I work in a community center at a low-income housing site doing kind of a little bit of everything. We have a food pantry. I do community outreach, after-school programs, all kinds of good stuff.
And we also have Rosalie joining us, but she'll just be dropping links in the chat as we talk that might be helpful for you all. So feel free to just start asking us questions in the chat or the Q&A, and we will answer them. To get us started, we got a question already. How did you choose your placements? So I can start by answering this, but basically choosing placements is a process with the field office. So you will submit a goal statement or video based on your pathway. And then the field office will choose a placement that they feel is best suited based off of your application. And then they will offer an interview to you with this placement, and it's an interview for both you and the field placement. So that's kind of where you choose, because you get to have say over if you get placed there or not. So when you're interviewing, you're also interviewing them to feel that if you want to actually work there and be a part of that agency. And Rosalie just dropped a link to the field website with all of these resources that explains the process.
Looks like we have one in the Q&A too that says, what are some reasons why a field site might decline to offer a student a placement after interviewing with them? And I can get us started on answering this question one reason could be that some field sites may be interviewing multiple candidates for one position or for a few positions. And so they may have to decline students if they can only take on one student at that time. So that's one reason. I would say others are similar to something Hannah had touched upon a little bit earlier, that it's a bit of a mutual process. And so you're interviewing them, they're interviewing you. If either of you feel that there's something that, I don't know if this feels like the right fit, then that could be a reason why they might decline you. And if Hannah or Natalie have anything else to add to that.
I think you did a good job. Just, stressing that it's a mutual process.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered it. And I don't think that happens super often. I don't know anyone personally that has happened to. I don't know if you guys do. But I will also say that if you don't accept or get a first offer, don't stress, because you will get placed somewhere, and you'll learn a lot no matter where you are. Like, the field office is good at getting you where you need to be.
Yes, and we have another question in the Q&A. How much time per week should we expect doing field work? So this will depend. I know that a bunch of us have different hours sometimes. So right now, I am only doing 2 days a week. So that means 16 hours a week for a total of 228 hours per semester. And that is based off of my pathway and my field site and how many credits of field I'm taking. So I believe it's like I'm taking 4 credits. So it's 2 credits like per day, basically, if you want to think about it that way. And there is a specific breakdown for credit per hour, and that can be found on the field site. But I know, Victoria, you have a different situation.
Yes, at Michigan Medicine, I believe that anyone who's placed at Michigan Medicine or most of those placements are typically 3 days a week, because we have a day that has like built-in mentorship and training sessions that usually take up half of the day. And so we do 6 credit hours per semester. So it's typically 24 hours per week.
For the majority of 16 and 20-month students, it'll be 2 days a week, so 16 hours your first semester in field, and then the semesters moving forward, you'll have 3 days a week, so it'll be 24 hours a week. At least that's how it is for me, and I think that's how it is for most 16 and 20-month students. But I suppose like some field placements might be a little different, like with Michigan Medicine might be a little different.
I just dropped and I found the conversion. So yeah, like Natalie was saying, that first foundation semester for 16 and 20-month students, the one credit is 114 hours. And then for advanced field, so all the 2 after that, and then for people coming in with advanced standing, all 3 of your semesters will be 1 credit is 57 hours. But that's like a lot of math. And your field office advisor will be able to just let you know right off the bat how much you'll be doing. So we also have a question. Can you describe your field experiences? Yes, we can all do that. And mine has been at Development Centers Behavioral Health Outpatient. I came in as leadership and management, and that's still my pathway. However, I've been doing actually more of an evaluation quality improvement focus within my field work, but still in a leadership and management context as I'm working with administrators of the agency. So I get to like see a little bit of both. And I've been working a lot with Excel and data in our EHR, like our health record system, and learning about policy implementation at a nonprofit, focusing on behavioral health, focusing on consumer satisfaction survey, evaluating how the COVID data and how many people got COVID at the agency and like what we were doing about that, how many consumers. I've been doing the management report, a lot of like I said, a mix between data evaluation and then also just like leadership amongst the agency.
So yeah, I'm at Community Action Network and I work in a community center. My first semester of field was this past winter, and it was really nice because it was one of the only things that I got to do in person, and that was my choice. I didn't have to do it in person, but I wanted to after being virtual for everything else. So that was really nice to just like get out and actually get some hands-on experience. And it was a little different. So I'm planning to do school social work after I graduate. So it was not entirely what I was expecting from a field placement, but I'm really glad that it's not in a school because I do have experience working in schools and I put that on my field application. So I think that's why I didn't get placed in a school. But I am still working with kids and adolescents, and that is the main goal. So doing like after school programs, and tutoring, and we're going to get more into that in the fall. I think I'm not in my field placement right now because I'm a 20-month student, so I don't have classes right now. But yeah, other than working with kids after school, I've also gotten to do some stuff with the food pantry, so like food distribution. I've learned a little bit about how policies affect how we operate, like low-income housing. I've done some community outreach. it's kind of just a mixed bag, but I think that's fun.
I also have had an in-person field experience throughout the entirety of my placement. And I just finished up actually today was my final day of field in the hospital. And so I've been inpatient 3 days a week at Michigan Medicine, working primarily with adults of all different ages and of many different, who are presenting with many different problems. And my experience, I've had 2 field instructors throughout my placement, and I typically will rotate between each of them on a weekly basis. And one is, so I spend some time on a general medicine unit where we see a lot of patients who are admitted related to alcohol and other substance uses, and then a lot of other chronic illnesses. And so I just spend a lot of time supporting families and patients and assisting with their discharge plans and working alongside the rest of the medical team on providing the best care for patients and families. And so I've really enjoyed it. It's definitely a fast-paced environment, and there's a lot of things coming at you all at once, but I really like being in the hospital setting and getting to work with people of so many different disciplines.
We have another question in the Q&A that says, how are you evaluated for field? Is it graded the same way classes are? No, it is very different. It's pass or fail. So you will not get like a grade for every assignment you submit for field or anything like that. And your field instructors are your field supervisors at your field site. And so they are real people with their real job at your field site who have an MSW and are licensed, but are just providing you assignments and like supervision that will give you that quality experience you want. And then your field advisor or your field faculty at the school is a faculty member from the University of Michigan School of Social Work, and they technically grade you based on the completion of your educational agreement and the submission of a key learning assignment, do just one short paper every semester that just kind of summarizes something you learned in field. So that's the only thing that's graded, but it's all pass fail. And then we have another one. Is it common at all for field sites to offer stipends? I will answer this one as well because this pertains to my field site. I actually am offered a stipend. It is extremely rare though. I did not know that going in, but when I was doing my little onboarding forms, that came up and they're like, yeah, we actually do offer a stipend, and it's extremely small. Nothing I would ever be able to live off of, but I would pick it up if I saw it on the ground. So I get that stipend like 2 months after my actual like semester has ended. So it's not like real time at all. However, I do know that there are other interns at my agency who didn't know about the stipend. So I would still advocate for yourself. You can't you can't really ask for money from this field office or from the field office or from the field site that you're at, but you could ask if that is a thing that is available at the agency and if you qualify for that, because I just know of that personal example at my agency where that seemed a little inequitable. Okay, does someone want to answer this? Victoria, what are your hours at the hospital placement?
Yes, my hours are, they're like, I go for 8-hour shifts, typically 3 days a week. So usually I get there around like 8:30 in the morning, and I stay until 4:30-ish.
We have another question in the chat that Rosalie answered in the chat about out-of-state placements for online students not in Michigan. And Rosalie responded, students who are in the online program will work with the field office to secure a local placement near your home. And then we also had a question, how often do offers of employments come out of field placements? I would say this is still not all the time, but a little bit more often than the stipends. I also got a job offer from my field placement. I highly recommend development centers. And that was also just a sheer luck of timing. They told me at the beginning of my time there that they would not be hiring, but they would do everything in their power to find me a job within like their network. But then the next semester, all of a sudden, they got a grant and they got more money and they were able to start hiring for a position that was like exactly what I was doing, which was extremely rare for this agency. And then also just a sheer luck of timing. And I was able to start working part-time at the agency while also still completing field and completing classes, because that just worked out with my schedule. And I worked with my advisors and professors and my supervisors. So it's definitely possible. And also just keep advocating for yourself, keep your ear to the ground, find out if they're hiring in the future so you can start preparing. I don't know, have you guys heard of other people getting hired at your placements?
In the hospital, it's definitely a little bit more tricky just because there are a lot of like procedures that that they have to follow, and licensure is also a bit of an obstacle that prevents students from being hired while they're still like in the program. And so I know there's a lot of students who typically within a few months of graduation will seek employment at Michigan Medicine. And it's cool because being at this placement, I have built such a broad network of connections with various social workers in a lot of different departments, and people who are inpatient, outpatient. And so I do think that it like creates a very optimistic space to be able to like gain employment within the system, but you won't get offered a job, unfortunately. You have to go through the entire application process.
Yeah, I know it can Community Action Network. It's I know a few of the site directors do have their MSWs for Michigan and Eastern Michigan, which is in the town like right next to Ann Arbor. So I do know that it's possible to get hired out of Michigan. I don't know if they had all of their site or their field placements at CAN or if it was kind of word of mouth, but we also have a lot of AmeriCorps Vistas. So that is another option for hiring. I mean, you won't make a lot of money, but it is an option there. But also they have like new sites popping up every few years. So they're expanding pretty rapidly. So I imagine that it will be easier to get employed with them if I was interested.
Yeah, I'll also clarify, I was not officially offered that job. I was recommended, but I had to still, like you got to go through the application process, but it's good practice anyways. So feel free to keep adding questions to the chat or the Q&A. And in the meantime, a lot of people have been asking about the actual like application process itself, and it's changed a lot, but we can kind of shed some light on some of the new changes that have been popping up. So students will complete an online application that includes the identification of a setting and a skill set that they want to learn. And students must be placed in a field setting that corresponds to their pathway. So that's the real key, that your pathway really dictates your field placement. And you can change your pathway up until you have to actually apply for field. So even though advanced standing, we had less time, I still actually changed my pathway from my application to the school social work. And then I changed it right before I applied to field, because I knew I wanted a field placement that was more focused on leadership and management versus community change. So that's like a key to understanding the pathway to field connection. We have another question. I'm slightly confused about the role of a task supervisor. Could one of you explain what this entails? Yes, I can start this off because I also have a task supervisor. So my clinical supervisor, even though I'm not clinical, actually has a licensed clinical master's social work degree. And so because she's fully licensed, she is my like official supervisor. And then my task supervisor, because they just work really closely at the agency, they're both directors within admin. they work together a lot on the same projects. So my task supervisor, who is not licensed, also provides me some tasks and other assignments that are related to what they do as well. But a lot of the times I'm reporting to both of them. So that's not the same for everyone else. Some people just report to their task supervisor, but go to supervision for their like official clinical supervisor. But for me, I report to both of them all the time. They're always on the same email chain. I see them both in supervision, and they can both answer most of my questions. Do you guys have different experiences?
Yeah, it took me like a whole semester to learn the difference between like field instructor and field supervisor. So don't feel bad. Like, you'll get the hang of it. And I think it is a little different for every field placement.
Yeah, I know that some, like one of my friends, because you just need to have someone that's licensed at the field site to offer you that supervision, because you do need like hourly supervision or an hour of supervision weekly to just be within the accreditation standards. So some people only see their like clinical supervisor during supervision, and then they report daily to their actual task supervisor, because that's the person that has tasks and assignments that are actually relevant to their pathway and to what they actually wanted to get out of field. So we can continue going through some more of the new application requirements. If no one else has any other questions. So the field team will provide 3 Zoom meetings per pathway to present more information about the pathway and possible placement opportunities. And there is a link to these recordings as well. I think, Rosalie, could you possibly drop that in the chat to explain more about the pathways? And there's office hours opportunities. You can always talk with a field team advisor. And they're doing rolling applications with open dates for each pathway this year. So that's why like those pathway recordings are going to be helpful, because it's going to be specific per pathway. So once a pathway application has been opened, they will accept and process applications as they come in. So it's best to get yours in earlier. Not that you might get a better placement, better one that's more aligned to what you want. But also you just might hear back sooner. If they submit before the open date, you will sit in the queue until the open date, but you just won't have to worry about it. And then the field team will meet every Wednesday to discuss the students and identify placement opportunities. So they're going to be working on this every week. And then, like we said, they will identify a field setting that will be most appropriate for you and then reach out to you. And you have the opportunity to advocate for yourself in this way. And if you know a setting that you really want to be at, include that in your application, email the field office, see what they can do. It's an 8-week process to get a new field site up and running. So if it's a site that we've not had a student at before, it will take some time, but it's always possible. And it's when you advocate for yourself that you'll hopefully get that most enriching experience that you want. We have another question. Did you or do you know of anyone who rejected a field site after interviewing with them, or do students tend to go with the first offer they get? No, you can definitely reject it. Have you guys heard of anyone personally? I've just heard like through the grapevine.
So I didn't reject after an interview, but I did reject one before an interview, because you'll have a team of faculty within the Office of Field Education who are reviewing, or at least one person who is reviewing your application, and then forwarding your application to field sites that they want to refer you for an interview. And I had a conversation with an employee in the field office on the phone who was just letting me know of a site that they were thinking of sending my application to, and just wanted to run it by me first. And just explained what the site was, and I'm in the interpersonal practice pathway and know that I'm interested in working in clinical and specifically in medical social work. And the placement that they were describing to me was not at all within the like clinical pathway or in a health setting. And so I just expressed that like I understand the importance of being open and adaptable, and that really is important in this process. But also just asking if they could reconsider me for a position that is a little bit more clinical, direct practice, and if possible in the health field. And that ended up really working out. So I'm glad that I trusted my instinct and just advocated for myself, because at the end of the day, this is your education. And while it doesn't have to, your field placement doesn't have to be your dream position or the exact area that you know or think you might want to go into, it is important for this to be a good learning process for you to be able to be in an area that you think you would like to learn more about and could see yourself potentially working in.
Yeah, I will also just say that I was a little skeptical when I first got offered my field placement because I want to get the school social work certificate. So like not being in a school was kind of like, why? But the school social work certificate only says that you have to work with children or adolescents for whatever, however many hours it is. It doesn't say you have to work in a school. So I'm actually really glad that I'm not in a school, because I'm kind of getting a new perspective of, it's like school social work, but from outside the school, which sounds weird, but I'm learning a lot of the like policy things that happen and how schools and families communicate with each other. And there's a lot of like red tape that you have to go through. So it's interesting to see it from a very different perspective. So yeah, like Victoria said, just be open to learning, know what you want, but also, I don't know, I guess just kind of weigh your options and see what you think is most important. So yeah, be open, but also advocate for yourself.
Yeah, I will say I have heard of people rejecting their sites, or rejecting an offer like of a field site after they interviewed. And it might take some time to find another one, but hopefully that will take less time than it took in COVID, because there'll be more opportunities. And we'll also just say that if a student rejects or is rejected by 3 organizations, they will be referred to a student success meeting just to meet with the field office and just make sure that, like, because if you rejected 3, they're like, whoa, maybe we've read your application wrong. Like, let's reconvene and let's look back at your application and just make sure that you're on the same page with the field office, because they want you to obviously have a really good placement so that you can be successful. And that way they can just touch base with you again and make sure that they're on the right track. Are there any more questions regarding field? Oh, yes, we do. Do you know of anyone going into a PhD after the MSW and the types of field placements that were the most beneficial for them? I do not know of anyone going from MSW to PhD, but I can imagine that it doesn't matter what field placement you're at, because PhDs can be pretty much anywhere, just like MSWs. So I think whatever you're passionate about, just go with that one and see where it takes you, and you might learn something new. And that might lead you. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I would just add to that, that, yeah, as Hannah was saying, your field placement, I don't know that really that will make a difference in like making the transition into the PhD, give you much more of an advantage. But I would say to seek opportunities within your placement. If there are other people who have a PhD there, or in the School of Social Work, there are plenty of faculty members, other there are students in the PhD program who you can reach out to and build those connections with, and even get involved in research to see if a PhD is something that you're interested in. I would highly recommend trying to like find those different avenues to just learn more about if I'm interested in getting a PhD right after I graduate from my MSW process, like how does that look? Because there definitely are students who are doing it, or at least I know of some students who are interested in getting a PhD, but they're not planning on doing it right after they graduate. But I know that some people also probably are. So just asking around and having conversations with different people in the school, I think is going to be really helpful in navigating through that process.
Yeah, I would say that there are actually a lot of field sites that are within the university, either within the university School of Social Work or the larger university as a whole. A lot of those opened up during COVID, and they might still be offering them. So that would be cool, because especially if you could get in, with something regarding research. But include that in your application, definitely. We have another question in the Q&A. How long does the whole application process typically last? It can last a while, like a couple months actually, because you have to submit your application, they've got to accept it and review it, find a site, set up an interview, like then respond back. And then if it doesn't work out, you got to set up another interview. So it can take a couple months, but they start preparing months in advance. So you will have the time, because that's just how the process always goes, and they're prepared for it.
Yeah, for 16 and 20-month students, the application opened, I think, like early to mid-October. And then I heard back, I want to say early November. But I know a lot of people were waiting like closer to the end of the semester still to hear back about field placements. But also going into the next question that I see in the chat about what I wish I knew, don't stress, like you will get a field placement. There's never been a student who just like didn't have a field placement. Like they will take care of you. But that I was definitely worried about that, and just, I don't know, like I'm an impatient person. But it all worked out. So just have faith, I guess. Just breathe.
I would add, going off of that, to answer the question about what I wish I knew. I think this is something that was discussed in some of my classes when we would just talk about our experiences in the program, is that so many of us were able to relate with one another in feeling that we felt like we didn't, like we just always felt like we didn't know enough. And like we had so many questions, and that sometimes we were like, I don't know what I'm doing. And that was just like a very common feeling. And but it's normal, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's just so much to learn. So I think that's something that I wish I had known before starting field, is that like it's okay to not know what to do, and it's important to ask questions and to like continue learning and growing. But like there will always be times where you're not going to know what to do, and that's okay.
That's why you're there, is to learn. They want you to ask questions.
That is the biggest lesson I've definitely learned in field. And that's like what I've written all my key learning like assignments about, is like, I didn't know what to do. And then I learned, and it's just like getting past that like mental block of, but I don't know, I don't want to mess it up. But that's the time. Mess it up now. Mess up every day, so that you don't mess up as often, maybe after, but also so that you mess up during field, during a very like supportive, just really supportive environment with plenty of people around you to help you out. So mess up now, and continue to be okay with messing up, because I'll speak to the whole started field, didn't know what I was doing, had to just figure it out. But also asked a lot of questions. Your field supervisors are there so that you can ask those maybe quote unquote dumb, but they're not dumb because someone has to ask it. So ask those questions, and then I got into field, I got a little bit more confident, still had plenty of to learn and still didn't know a lot. Now I'm on the other side of things as an employee in basically a very similar realm at the agency. I still don't know what I'm doing. Like, so you're still not going to know. And the degree is so quick and kind of short, and they're not going to give you all the answers, but it's going to give you the confidence to mess up, to make mistakes, to ask for help, and to figure it out. And the resources, you're going to get a lot of resources. So just start using them. Like once I do that, once I like go to like my little resource list, I'm like, oh, there's the answer. Or, oh, this brought me to another avenue that opened up an even a bigger question. So just use your resources and use this time, because that is also what you're paying for. You're paying for these people to help you out and to help you figure out new ways to overcome these barriers and these challenges. We've got about 20 more minutes. If you've got any more questions for us, we are happy to answer. Oh, we have a question. Do you have any financial aid info? What kind of information? We can drop a link to the financial aid page in the School of Social Work website, but you can always reach out to our financial aid officer within the School of Social Work, Cerise, and Rosalie just dropped in the linked in the chat to the financial aid website on our School of Social Work page. If you have a specific question, we can try to answer it. And those are the email addresses that Rosalie just dropped as well. Okay, how often do you meet with other students to talk about your placements? So Natalie, did you have a class for foundation fields where you talked with other students, or is that not a thing?
I did not have a class, but I did have, so we have individual group supervision, and those, at least at my field placement, I think a lot of field placements have similar things. So individual supervision, and we called it group supervision. They were on alternating weeks. So I would have 1 hour of supervision each week. 1 week it would be just with my supervisor, and then the other week it would be with all the other interns and AmeriCorps Vistas at my placement. So that was kind of when I had the opportunity to talk with other students about our field placement, but that was all people like at my same site. I didn't really have like a set time to discuss with students at other sites or other field placements. It's just kind of a casual, like if it comes up in conversation, but I didn't really plan anything like that. And I didn't have a class for it.
Yeah, I would say some people I know in like the scholar programs, like the special, the special scholar programs or whatever. I know like Detroit Clinical Scholars, they all meet to talk about their placements, but all those placements are usually pretty similar. And they actually do have like a class time meeting. But for your regular run-of-the-mill placements, you don't really have like a class that you sit there and talk with students. But I know like if you're an advanced standing student, meaning you're going to have field every semester, during your intro to social work class, that is kind of supposed to be a time where you talk about those starting off field things related to your placement. But everyone will have a different placement usually in those scenarios. And it's not always like a set up thing, but that just tends to come up. That's like one of my favorite questions to ask people is where is your placement? Because you do spend a lot of time there and you learn a lot. But I know that just in classes in general, you just end up talking about what you're learning in fields. At least in my experience, professors try to relate things back to what you're learning in field and bringing these things up, like bring this up with your field advisor. Have you thought about this, doing this in field? Have you thought about seeking out this opportunity? So it'll generally come up. Any other final questions? Do most field sites have regular business hours? I would say yes. I have, like, again, heard through the grapevine that some field sites may have offerings on the weekends or something or at night, but I have not actually heard of an individual who had to like work on the weekends or work at night or anything like that. If you're an intern, like you're still going to be um treated as such, and you're not going to be expected to like go out of your way, work overtime or anything like that. I don't believe. I know that maybe if you're in a more of a clinical setting, it depends on the consumers you have, but I still have not heard of anyone working on the nights or the weekends. Have you guys heard of anyone? Yeah, doesn't seem that typical at all. And we have another, just want to say thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, this is our last webinar. So thank you all for attending all of them and asking really good questions and being patient with us. Any final questions? Well, if we don't have any other questions, thank you all for coming. And you can always email Office of Student Services if you have any other questions regarding field or anything else as you all prepare to start in the fall. And basically, congratulations, and you're going to do great no matter what. So thank you all.